The newest member of the U.S. House Republican leadership claims her party is united following a fight within that kicked out this woman, the leader she replaced. Wyoming's Liz Cheney, the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, was previously criticizing former President Trump's unproven claims that he actually won the 2020 presidential election. Cheney previously served as House Republican Conference chair. It's a position where she led the party's private meetings for House Republicans, where they elect leaders, decide which members to serve on committees, and set their policy agendas. But Republican members stripped her of that position, and they gave it to the woman on the right of your screen, New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, after Cheney repeatedly criticized former President Trump and pledged to make sure Trump doesn't ever become president again. WHO 13 political director Dave Price sat down with two Iowa insiders about this highly unusual move and why Iowans may now see Cheney as a 2024 caucus contender.
The talk shows like to use the word the cancel culture. Isn't that what Republicans are doing to her by removing her?
Yeah. I mean, I think Joni Ernst even said that and said it was inappropriate, and I salute Joni for calling that out.
But do you have concerns for the big picture about your party if you are not allowed to have a prominent member criticize the former president's false claims about the election?
Well, it's not the Republican Party, it's the Trump Party. Right now, it's the Trump Party. And until the Democrats figure out a way to beat the Trump Party, it's not going to change, because folks are worried, and the Republican Party are worried about primaries, and if Trump can primary them effectively, they're worried about their political futures. So that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. Now, in 2020, I still think Republicans will probably take control of the U.S. House. 2022, I'm sorry. Control of the U.S. House, just because of the midterm, and they're so close, and I think reapportionment's going to benefit them. A lot of Republican legislators are going to control that. So I think they're still likely going to take control. So that could mean the Trump Party is even more powerful than it has been in the past. And you're going to see more of this, where if you cross Trump, you get booted. Long term, it's devastating to the Republican Party, and that's what Liz is trying to call out. Because unless we can both marry the working class voters that Trump brought in with the suburban voters that we've historically had who vote on economic issues, we can't win. And Trump alienates a lot of those suburban voters. That's what happened in 2018. Yep. He alienated the suburban voters, and particularly in the central Iowa area, but all across the state. That didn't happen in 2020. They came back. If they don't stay, and McCarthy's trying to walk this fine line of not alienating the economic conservatives and at the same time making sure the working class Trump folks stay with him. We'll see whether or not he can continue to straddle that fence.
Do you see her running for president?
Liz Cheney? Yeah, I think she probably will.
And is that effort underway?
There are a number of people that are sort of anti-Trump Republicans, if you will. Ben Sasse, there's a number of these, Jeff Flake, a number of these folks out there that I think are interested in running for president, be the alternative to Trump.
And are those conversations already happening in our state?
They're happening in Iowa. They're happening around the country. And I think, frankly, there needs to be an alternative to Trump in these caucuses that come out. I think Iowa could play a real important role in the national political discussion about the future of the Republican Party, but you can't do that if you don't have an alternative to the Trump Party.
What would you make about the Liz Cheney fallout?
Well, two things. One, I would say my Republican father would probably start voting for Republicans again if that happened. And two, I listened to her speech this morning, actually, and her speech was about a fragile democracy, which is very real when you contest or put out the information that our democracy, our elections aren't legitimate. It's a real concern about the future of our country, and I think she hit the nail on the head. I don't agree with her on that, but I'm not surprised.
Here's the evidence that it's not the Republican Party, it's the Trump Party. They're going to replace her with someone who votes conservative 56% of the time, and Liz Cheney votes conservative 82% of the time.
Right.
She is a rock-ribbed conservative. But that's what makes Liz Cheney real credible, for a lot of sort of, I would call, traditional Republicans, because they know that on the issues of limited government and those sorts of things, she's with them all the way. She's not a rhino. The rhinos are the Trumpsters, because they're not really Republicans.
Iowa 1st District Congresswoman Ashley Hinson was among the Republicans to vote to replace Cheney with Stefanik. In a statement, Hinson said Stefanik was the person to unite Republicans and said, quote, "Show the American people the stark contrast between Speaker Pelosi and President Biden's big government agenda and the Republican vision of freedom and opportunity," end quote.